Hi everyone, well what a week. I hope you are well and keeping safe. Now grab yourself a cup of tea and settle down to our webinar, as this week we are joined by Experian. Hi everybody at Experian. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So who is Experian? You may all know them as a credit reporting company. However, you might not know that Experian collects data from businesses and people all over the world. Using the data for social media and online shopping and gaming to commuting, data is all around us. And in essence, that's exactly what Experian do. They harness the power of data and use it to help shape a more informed world. Oriane is the Senior Talent Acquisition Partner, and she'll be telling us all about the recruitment process and also a more in-depth look at how they're dealing with the current pandemic. So look forward to that. So Oriane will join us after the introductions and then right at the end of the webinar as well. So thanks for joining us today. Just to introduce you to the graduates. So we'll start with Shamas. So you studied at Loughborough University, Information Management and Business, and you are now a Service Operations graduate. This bit sounds like University Challenge, just to go around the panel. Georgie, over to you. So Georgie is the Technology Graduate IT Administrator, studied at Leeds and Sheffield Hallam University. She did a BSc in Maths and an MSc in Information System Security. Haley is a graduate software developer, studied at the University of Derby and studied computer games programming. Something I've never heard of before, so that's exciting. And last but not least, Luke. So Luke is a graduate data analyst, studied at Warwick and has done a bachelor's and postgrad course in physics. So, Oriane, if we can start with you. I've briefly explained who Experian is. Now, what are the common misconceptions about Experian when you're interviewing grads and interns as well? What would you like to get across there to our audience?
Yeah, I think there's two misconceptions that are really common for Experian. So the first one is most people know of us as a credit score company, which that's correct. That is factually right. But what students don't realise is that's only one element of our business. Yeah. And we actually have a breadth of more services and teams within the organisation. So I think it'll be really exciting for students today to hear from our graduates and get that real, I suppose, back-end view of what Experian actually do, to realise that misconception of just being a credit score company is vastly different. I think the second misconception is when you're an established organisation that's quite credible, global presence, there comes a natural stigma that you are potentially a little rigid, a little bit corporate, maybe traditional. And I think the reality is Experian, and hopefully the graduates will agree, it's such a fluid and dynamic business that is just constantly changing.
Yeah.
And what I enjoy most is the people in it. So we've got some brilliant minds with us that are all unique in their own way from a diverse background, but equally they bring this energy and fun and innovation. So that would be the misconception to me. We're definitely more than just credit, and we're not the traditional corporate firm that you expect. So I would love it if students, I suppose, realise that message at the end of this webinar. That would be my goal.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I look after Experian, and I've looked after you for a number of years now as one of my clients. And to be honest with you, right at the beginning, when I was doing my research on you and who you are, 2-3 years ago now, I just thought that I've got a mortgage, so I had to have my credit rating done and everything else. And I honestly just thought that you were that, credit check company almost. And now over the years, and Oriane, we've been working really hard to update your hub as well, and speaking to the grads on numerous occasions as well before the webinar. There is so much more to Experian, and I'm really looking forward to all of the grads getting their stories out there, because they are all massively different, different backgrounds in different positions now, different ways into the business as well. So really looking forward to sharing those stories with our audience. And bit of a fun fact, Oriane, as well, that we found out. So Experian are actually working with the government to help within the pandemic at the moment, aren't they? Do you want to tell the audience a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so obviously the pandemic, as we all know, going into our second lockdown now,
Yeah.
It's a really challenging year for everyone. And I suppose the joy of Experian is what we do is we harness the power of data. That's the really short answer of what we do. So we've been working directly with Number 10 and the government to use data to help identify who are the most vulnerable people in our community and how do we get resources to them. You know, where is there a dense population of elderly individuals that need more support, and how can we get support to them?
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the other things I was fascinated to learn, even myself, was we've introduced something called an emergency payment freeze. So what that basically means is if anyone's taken a payment holiday with their lender, so say they have a mortgage and they've taken a payment holiday for a few month period, they will still have their credit scores protected. So that financial security is really critical in such a challenging landscape.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is we have something called our values, money and me. So if anyone hasn't seen it, give it a Google, check it out. But essentially it's a financial education tool, and it's available to all parents across the UK, but it essentially helps them with homeschooling and I suppose that education piece around finances. So yeah, some fun facts for you there, that we are doing a lot behind the scenes during the pandemic to help the UK economy and support the people. You know, we're not doing this as a profit running element. It's purely how can we help the UK recover from this and protect people's financial well-being and health.
Yeah. How does that work, Ariane? Sorry to put you on the spot here. So would you as a company come up with these ideas, or would it be, you know, the government saying, look, there's a need for this, Experian, can you help us, or does it work in, you know, a bit of both?
A bit of both. We're constantly innovating in the market, thinking of new products that we can bring out that are going to support our consumers, so the likes of us at home. But equally, when the government has a need and they need to go to large organisations to gain that support, because of our connections, we're able to jump in. So it's very much a two-way street and a two-way kind of relationship and partnership in a sense.
Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. And you know, Experian, it might be new to our audience. It is a fairly new sector. So from our audience's point of view, you know, we're targeting STEM students. We are just talking to STEM students today. Why in particular does Experian want applications from STEM students?
So we kind of covered this at the start, but Experian is much more of a data and technology organisation rather than a credit score organisation. So the majority of our roles are actually within data and technology and IT. So STEM students for us bring a wealth of, I suppose, curiosity, but also innovation to the business.
Yeah.
And it really doesn't matter what you've studied. So whether that's engineering or physics or maybe even veterinary sciences, what you study is irrelevant. What really matters to us more is you've got that natural problem solving ability, and that you've got a real desire to learn and to push yourself to grow and develop. So STEM students for us are critical, but it doesn't matter what that subject is in more specifically. So for anyone who is on this session thinking, would I be right for Experian? Could I apply? The short answer is yes, absolutely. And please just give it a go. You've got nothing to lose.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this is what we're getting from a lot of the webinars. And I know we've been presenting a lot to the unis this week as well. And it is those transferable skills. You know, when you've done, I'm picking on you now, Luke, but, you know, like a physics degree, for example, you know, there's so much that's incorporated within a physics degree and that you can use as part of your data analyst role as well. And I do think that is a message that we need to get across to our students. You know, just because you studied mechanical engineering doesn't necessarily mean you have to go into the automotive industry. You know, you do gain lots of different skills, so don't pigeonhole yourself either. So definitely a message I want to get across. So thank you very much for that, Ariana, and we'll join you at the end of the webinar. So obviously now we'll move on to the grads. Just to kind of reiterate before I do, what Oriane just said about the vibe of Experian and the fact that it is such a dynamic company. I do think that the Grad Cracker hub is full of information that really gets those messages across. We've worked really hard on updating the hub, getting all the relevant on-point information on there. So it does include things like Experian Life, which details everything from benefits, obviously life at Experian, learning and development, their diversity and inclusion, you know, what they're doing to promote that. Also lots of advice on application hints and tips. So CV, online assessment, video interview, assessment centres, and it's all current as well. So it's all the information which you would need for their current application process, which I know that Luke and Hayley are going to touch on a little bit later on in the webinar. But also Oriane, right at the end, is going to just go through the process with you to make sure you as the audience are completely confident in what it's going to look like. So thanks very much everybody for joining us, and Sophie, I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Carla. Thanks so much for that introduction, Oriane. It's really interesting. I know it's going to be a real eye-opener for a lot of our audience as well, to find out exactly who Experian are and bust those some of those kind of misconceptions. So I'm going to start by asking kind of the whole panel a question. I know that all of you chose to apply to Experian for slightly different reasons, ranging from who Experian is as an employer to more specifically about the particular opportunity that attracted you to the company. So I'm going to start with Georgie. So if you could tell the audience why you decided to apply to and join Experian.
Yeah, so I chose to do the grad scheme because I wanted the opportunity to learn and work in some different teams. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, and technology is just a huge area. So it kind of gave me that opportunity to work with different people and find out more about the path I could follow. And I chose Experian specifically as it is a global company. You get to work with people from everywhere, and that also gave me the opportunity to do an international rotation. So this time last year I was working in Texas, which was amazing. So yeah.
Fantastic. How long were you out in Texas for?
6 weeks.
6 weeks. Wow. And is there going to be more opportunities to do international travel throughout the rest of the grad scheme then?
Not for me personally, but yeah, I'm not sure about in future.
Fab. Okay, thanks, Georgie. Over to you, Luke. Why did you choose Experian?
Yeah, so just building on what Georgie had to say, really. I mean, going for a graduate scheme, you get to do a number of rotations within the business, so you really get a good breadth of experience of going around the different functions within the business. And as a graduate data analyst, you really go from sort of the technical things right through to how data is governed and the rules around that. But obviously, just to build on what Georgie was saying, is for me it was more about the role in itself and how my technical skills sort of transfer to the role, and I think it was just a really good fit.
Okay. Did you before you kind of looked at Experian, did you consider data as a career pathway coming from a physics background, or was it really the Experian role that kind of drew you in?
Yeah, I think I did have my eye on working with data and sort of numbers, as essentially that's in a physics degree. It tends to be what you do anyway. Yeah. You do get sort of with doing like a physics degree, and obviously it's specific to me. There is obviously a large range of jobs that you can do, but specifically for me, I think data did catch my eye as it's sort of like an emerging market. They do say sort of data is the new oil. So yeah, it's just a very exciting and new business to be a part of.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Luke. Hayley, on to you.
Yeah, I mean, kind of just following on from what those guys have said, very similar. I was moving from, obviously, as Carla said at the beginning, I did gaming in my degree, moving from that to web development. So having the kind of learning focus on the grad scheme was quite important to me. But it was really the assessment day that kind of sold it to me. Throughout the entire application experience, I was just constantly kept up to date, kept in the loop, spoken to like a real human being and not just treated like another applicant, another number. and at the time, obviously, I was finishing uni, applying to quite a few places. That experience and that kind of like level of personalization was just outstanding. So yeah, really completely sold me.
That's brilliant. I think that's a really good point. That it's a lot about you deciding on the company as well throughout the application process, and dealing with the company as much as it is them choosing you. And I think that the experience and how you're treated during that process is really important, as obviously you've discovered. And it's lovely to hear that that's kind of what really sold you on the company. We're going to come back to talk to you in a little bit, actually, Hayley, about the more detail about the assessment centre, but that's great to know.
Cool.
So finally, Shamas, over to you. Why did you choose Experian?
So a lot of good points made. There was obviously some in my head as well. Why I chose Experian, I mean, I think when I first started off, I just looked on their website just to try and understand a bit better and how many different things they do, bar the actual credit reporting that we see on the adverts. And that almost triggered me to actually realize there's a lot more to this place. Then I almost go into the application and understand what the role entails, and actually speaking to the application owners and understanding what was involved. I was interested in service provision, providing a service, and then how that linked into IT. That was detailed across to me really well. I was able to understand that, and that was something exciting that Experian were offering. And then I suppose the key part of it was the structure of the scheme, how they were able to tailor what I'd want to do over the program. So I think that was a key one, and the other one was probably flexibility in working, and how Experian are probably, as many other businesses, but Experian definitely lead in terms of how they're able to tailor how we want to work and take advantage of that as well. So that was another important facet, I suppose, just to add to the others that the guys have mentioned.
Brilliant. And your job title, where opposed to some of the other grads, is service operations graduate, which maybe isn't as clear as, say, data analyst.
Yeah.
So what does that really mean, Shamas?
So service in itself, is it follows. So Experian follow. It's called ITIL, so it's Information Technical Infrastructure Library. But what that essentially means is IT and offering service. To just break it down in simple terms, a set of organization capabilities that we offer from an end-to-end life cycle. It all involves IT, especially in relation to STEM, let's say, in the technological aspect. So essentially, I could be titled an IT service management graduate, which I think I am now, to be fair, but we came in as service operations. So that's the thing as well, which I'd probably point out is, don't be, fooled by titles sometimes, because roles can relate to a ton of different things. And that's one thing I found out going into this role, was the actual opportunity that came under service operations was a range of different functions, areas, from data analytics across to project management. So that was something that almost surprised me when I did start. It was extremely exciting because I wasn't expecting that offering as part of it. So I could be here all day telling you what it means, but that's almost a gist of it, I'd say, is it's IT and offering a service in simple terms.
Great stuff. Well, we are going to find out more about the role as we go through, but I just wanted to kind of clarify that. And I think that's a great point you made about, don't be too focused on what the job title says, really dig into what you're actually going to be doing, as part of that scheme.
Yes.
So that's great. Okay, lovely. Well, that's great to hear kind of why you all chose Experian. What we're going to do now is kind of head back to Hayley and Luke to find out a little bit more about the details of how you actually get to Experian, and a bit more about the assessment centres and recruitment process. So Hayley, we're going to start with you, because I know obviously you have experience of going through the assessment centre. Could you just tell us about how the assessment centre works and what our students could experience if they went through that?
Yeah, of course. So I've actually been to 2 assessment centres now. The first one was the one where obviously I was applying, and the second one was for our new intake of grads that we just did this summer. So first I'll talk about my original one, and then a bit about the second one, but leave that mostly to Luke. So it was kind of like a morning thing, so it's like 9 until 1, if I remember correctly. So it was kind of just wait until we all get there, about 10 minutes, kind of just give us time to sit in the lobby together, get to know one another and everything, which was quite nice. Bit of a relaxing time just to all share our nerves and everything. So then we went upstairs into a big meeting room where we had a bit of a group brief about Experian as a whole, and then a bit more into the roles that we were going to be doing ourselves. So we had some team managers come in, basically give a bit of an overview about the teams that we would be working in and what the day-to-day would look like. And then after that, we kind of broke out into the interviews. So we had 2 interviews. There was one technical-based one and one personal-based, which was quite a nice way to do it because they were with 2 different interviewers. So it gave you a bit of a chance to get to know more than just, the one interviewer that you would normally see on a standard interview. And then after those, we kind of had a nice lunch break. So we got to go into the canteen, sit down, all eat food together, again with the interviewers. So it was really nice and relaxed, getting to know them more. And then went back upstairs for a group exercise, which was, we had to basically order the things that we would want to have with us in a shipwreck. And then we had to, as a group, explain why we decided on those things and try and come up with like a list as a group, which was just quite a fun thing, gave us a bit of opportunity to, show how we would voice ourselves in a team and stuff.
Yeah.
And then that was the end of that. For the second one, it was online, so during the pandemic. And me and 3 of the other grads came on to do a networking session with the new intake. It was just like a half an hour session just to have a quick chat with them. They could ask us any questions that they wanted about our roles, what kind of things we did on a day-to-day basis, which was really nice because now that they've started, we know them a bit more better and they know us a bit better than if we just met them on the first day. So yeah.
Great stuff. Yeah, I think that's really important. The online assessment centre is now a thing, given that COVID has happened. So I think a lot of our audience will probably be thinking, well, how does that work? And really, obviously, given what you just said, Hayley, and I know running up to it, talking to Oriane, that really the assessment centre is the same as it would be in person, apart from it's just moved online. And as Carla said, we've built in a load of advice onto the Experian GradCracker Hub that talks through the online assessments in more detail as well. So thank you very much for that, Hayley. So Luke,
it might also be worth noting just thinking about the career centre as well. So I mentioned last time on the webinar that we do have the GradCracker Career Centre, features loads of advice, hints and tips and things like that. And there is more of an online virtual part to that now that we are adding to it more and more every week. So what we'll do after this webinar is obviously break it up and include Hayley's and Luke's and Oriane's hints and tips in that section. But yeah, there's lots of advice in there as well. I know it's new, it might be a little bit scary to some people, but that's there for you to go and have a look at as well. Sorry, Soph.
That's fine. Okay, so yeah, we're going to head over to you now, Luke, because your experience was a little different from Hayley's experience of actual assessment when she was going for the job with Experian, because you were interviewed solely during the pandemic. So again, something that our audience is probably going to be thinking, this is going to be what I'm going through in the next few months. So you didn't do an assessment centre, but you did have the face-to-face interview, as well as going through the online applications and testing. And I know that you found the role yourself on GradCracker. So it'd be great if you could talk us through that kind of start to finish process, applying, going through the company hub on GradCracker, and then all the online testing and interview stage would be great.
Yeah, that's right. So I hope none of you have to go through an online assessment like I did, but Experian did make it really nice, to be honest, and I'll talk a bit about that. So yeah, like you said, I found the opportunity on GradCracker, funnily enough, which is why I'm very happy to do this, to help other people like myself. That was obviously a few months ago now. But yeah, so it was just like the normal sort of stuff, really. So it was online pre-screening, just all sort of basic stuff. And then after that, I did sort of the online tests, which is very sort of similar to many other sort of graduate schemes. And then after that you've completed that, you did an online video interview, which I'm not sure if that's what you would do anyway with the normal assessment centre. I'm not too sure. So I had that. And then after I passed that, I then had the face-to-face interview, which obviously would have been done in the office. And obviously I missed out on the group assessment as well. But yeah, the face-to-face interview, obviously we did it on Microsoft Teams. It was really relaxed. They made you feel super comfortable. Obviously I went in feeling really nervous, like I was going to be put on the spot, but it was just, it started out, it was kind of weird. It was just like an informal chat. It was just like, oh, how you doing? You know, how's it going? Like, you know, just talking about the crazy world at the minute. And then, yeah, the questions were sort of, it was quite refreshing really, because the questions weren't sort of putting you on the spot to be like, oh, you know, what can you do for us? It was more sort of really engaging, and the questions were really trying to get the most out of you and talking about the experiences that you had, obviously doing your degree and from other job roles that you may have had. So yes, it was really a good experience, and yeah, I feel very lucky to get a job in this climate.
Fantastic, thanks, Luke. Yeah, no, I think that's great, and it's great to hear that, you know, you went through that whole process online, and you know, you were made to feel so comfortable, and you know, hopefully we'll put some of our students' minds at ease about the process now. So thank you very much to Hayley and Luke for giving us a bit of an overview of the, you know, the recruitment process and the different steps that you might go through. And remember, as Carla said, we've got loads of advice on the Experian Gradcracker Hub now about all of those different steps. So you can always refer back to that and this webinar when it goes live after today as well. So I'm going to move on now to go around the panel again to your experiences now that you've actually joined Experian. Something that's really important to our student audience is the training that you'll actually get when you join an employer. And it's really high up in our students' mind when they are looking at different companies to apply to. So you've all had different training on different areas. So we're going to run around the panel again and just find out a little bit more about the different types of training that you've had. So Georgie, you have had training, it's been really hands-on, and it's included things like shadowing and Pluralsight, which I'm going to admit, I have no idea what that means. So I'm hoping that you are going to be able to enlighten us and tell us a little bit more about these training opportunities that you've had.
Sure. So for each of my rotations, each team has allowed me to get very involved, very hands-on right from the start. They've given me my own sort of projects to work on, but also given me the support alongside that, but just made sure that I had control. And I think that's been one of the quickest ways that I've been able to learn and pick things up, and also has really helped with my confidence in terms of knowing what I'm capable of. Pluralsight is a sort of video training platform, and I think it's quite IT focused, but there's all different sorts of things on there. So because I've been doing some security rotations, I've been doing the video courses for different security certifications. And then that means that once I've got the experience and I'm able to actually go and get those certifications, I've already had the training for it. So I'm sort of ready. And at the moment I'm in a project management team. So I've been doing a project management certification, just sort of alongside working with the team.
Fabulous. And do you get to kind of choose the different training bits that you go on, or is that kind of led by your rotations?
Yeah, it's especially with Pluralsight, because I just have access to all of it. I've just been able to choose what I wanted to, and I've been able to choose all my rotations apart from the first one. So I've really been able to tailor it to what I've wanted to learn. So it's been really good in that sort of way.
Great stuff. So you've been able to kind of choose where you want to go in the business and then tailor the training alongside that.
Exactly.
Brilliant stuff. So Luke, over to you. We're going to talk a little bit about your training as well now. So you've received specific training in cybersecurity, as I understand, something that you might not expect in a data analyst role, but also for a company like Experian. So could you tell us a little bit more about what you've learned and why that's really important to your role?
Yeah, so pretty much straight off the bat, from joining the company, I joined in early September. So I've just been here just over 8 weeks. So straight away, they got you to do cybersecurity training, which basically, it was just sort of like a general training to make sure that you understand GDPR and how that is processed and handled through the business, and how we handle people's data, and how we're following the ICO guidelines as well. So it was just, I must have spent probably about a week and a half doing, they call it e-learning. So it's like video tutorials and lots of PDFs to read and things like that, with tests at the end and things like that to make sure you understand what you're being trained about. But yeah, it's super important, obviously, when you're working with data, to make sure that you know that the company is handling the data in the right way, and that there's no possible ways that it can be leaked or be stolen and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. You mentioned a couple of things when you were talking there. So GDPR, I know that anybody who's worked in a business will know what GDPR is, because it
nightmare.
But I'm not sure whether our students, if they've not worked before, will understand what GDPR is. And you've also mentioned something, ICO guidelines, which I wasn't 100% sure what you meant there, Luke. So do you mind just explaining what those two things are?
Yes, so the ICO is the Information Commissioner's Office. So they work with GDPR, which is I think I'm getting this right, the General Data Protection Regulations. I think that's the right acronym.
You passed your training, Luke.
Yeah, I passed the training.
Oh, Shamas, that was mean.
So the ICO work with the GDPR guidelines to essentially make sure that companies like Experian are the processes and the way they handle people's data is done in the correct way. And obviously, as a data analyst, when I have obviously get my hands on people's data and I'm doing things with it, or processing it in a certain way, that I'm doing it in a fashion that's make sure it meets those guidelines, basically.
Great, thank you for that, Luke. Okay, over to you, Hayley, now. You have got your Pluralsight license. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that involved to get to that stage, and what areas you are looking to kind of build upon, improve on, and train some more in?
Yeah, so when we originally started, we all got given a Pluralsight license, which basically just gives us like unlimited access to the Pluralsight like courses and everything. So originally they gave us some courses to do, just to make sure that we all were kind of at the same level. We have basic knowledge for what we would need on the job. And then after that, it was kind of just, free reign to us to use it as and when we want to, for the things that we would like to learn. So it's really good, actually. Like, they encourage that you take some time out of your day to do just personal development training. So I tend to do like half an hour every morning, just like Pluralsight videos and stuff. My primary focus is on like C#, JavaScript, and Node.js. So Pluralsight has these paths that they offer, where you can basically go from anywhere from like beginner, intermediate to advanced, and it will basically then tailor that based on your skills. You can do like a quiz every couple of months, and it will kind of point you in the right direction for where you should be, and learn from it that way. It's pretty cool as well, because when you do it every couple of months, you see your like score go up. It's almost like a game. But it's really good, yeah.
Cool. And is there any other training courses that you've kind of undertaken since you've been in Experian as well?
Yeah, so we've been on a couple in-person courses. So we had one for React, where a React certified trainer came to Experian. We had kind of like a 2-day course with him. He basically just walked us through this whole thing that he kind of put together himself, which taught us from the basic fundamentals all the way to advanced kind of knowledge. We've had a couple other as well with QA, which is a company. They've got a couple of bases. There's one in London and Manchester, the ones that we went to. So one of those was for C# ASP.NET Core. That's quite a lot. It won't mean much to any of you, but if you know, it's basically just this C# framework that we use in Experian that I had no experience with, so obviously had to learn it. And also an AWS course, which is Amazon Web Services, which is where we host all of our services, microservices and front ends and stuff. So obviously a course on that was really beneficial as well.
Great, that's a good point actually, to touch upon there, Hayley, that you didn't have experience in this particular C# .NET ASP. I can't remember all the letters. You didn't need that to be able to be successful in applying to the role. You can learn that on the job, and I think that's quite important to get that message across, that you don't need to know everything and every coding language, etc., to be able to go into an IT role with Experian.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I said before, like going from gaming to web development is quite a big jump. Really, the only similarity is the fact that I know some programming. So yeah, JavaScript and the .NET C# framework was quite different to anything that I've used before. So it was all brand new to me, but Experian was just really, really supportive in taking me on and teaching me it and getting me up to speed.
Great, thanks, Hayley. And last but not least on this one, Shamas, can you tell us a bit more about the training course that you've been? I know they've involved data management and project management on just a couple of them.
Yeah, so before joining Experian, I mean, I was part of a role where, well, I did a degree in IT, so I had some experience of, sort of what would be used, but I almost forgot about it. And you come into Experian and it's almost the world's your oyster in terms of what you want to learn. There's that much on offer in terms of Microsoft applications to data management to project management. So what started off is just an honest, open conversation with your manager, which was really refreshing to say, what are you interested in? What's the work you're involved in? And then they're able to tailor your training towards that. So an example would be in the first rotation I did, involved heavily in terms of Microsoft Excel. So your manager is able to then, let you know about what courses are on offer on online modules to carry out throughout that first rotation. So you're learning on the job as well as that experience practically as well. And then you can apply that theory to practice. So yeah, I've done a module on Microsoft Excel to sharpen upon that. In my last rotation, I did a module on Microsoft Access, so database work. If no one's heard of Microsoft Power BI, which is something coming into fruition, it's linking, it's almost like a spreadsheet / PowerPoint in one, and that'll start to become more prominent, especially within the technological world. And that was really exciting to be part of, and actually do a course on that as well. And then all of those linked in terms of the rotations and projects that we're involved in. And that caught my interest, and similar to Georgie, I requested that I'm really interested in project management and something that I'd like to plan on moving forward. So that's currently in motion right now, is doing an apprenticeship alongside my graduate scheme in project management as well. So it all ties in well. And at the end of the day, I can have a conversation with my manager today and say, I'm really interested in something. We'll see what's on offer. And that training is instantly worked in as and when it makes sense. And they're really open to that. And alongside on the job, you having your regular one-to-one, then training is literally really flexible, really open with all our managers. So yeah, it's like I mentioned, it's sort of world is your oyster with training at Experian.
How does it work doing an apprenticeship alongside the graduate scheme then? That's quite interesting.
Yeah, slight regrets. I'm working weekends as well. No regrets at all. It just means at the end of the day is how disciplined you are, how much you want to progress. That's down to you as an individual. So I know that it's going to be an additional 20% to my workload, but at the end of the day, I'm going to achieve something that will take me forward in terms of what sort of role I want moving forward. And again, it's something that you are able to have an honest conversation with your line manager, with your program owner as well. How can we implement this? How can we make this work? Those conversations aren't rejected; they're accepted, and then you're able to actually integrate that. It's of course got to make sense at the same time, but it's definitely an open culture in terms of you showing enthusiasm towards learning something and developing.
Lovely, thank you very much, Shamas, for that.
I'll just add to that as well, whilst we can, Sophie, that when you hear someone studying an apprenticeship, it doesn't mean straight out of college, that fresh A-level student. Apprenticeships in this era, in kind of a more modern world, you can study an apprenticeship in almost any area. So it could be a project management qualification. If you're going into finance, you can do an ACA qualification under an apprenticeship badge. You can also do masters under an apprenticeship as such now. So just want to make that clear, that the stigma on an apprenticeship doesn't mean it is just for school leavers and kind of A-level students. So don't let that kind of put you off or be a little bit of a misconception. So just wanted to add that before we moved on, Sophie.
No problem. Thanks, Ariane. I think that's a really good point, and can often be kind of perceived that is the way. What we're going to do now is we're going to talk about actual projects that you guys have been working on. So I'm going to start with you, Luke. Can you tell me about the current project that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, sure. So I'm within the data office, which is actually a fairly new thing for Experian. And I think it was set up just over a year ago, or a year and a half ago. So essentially the project that I'm involved in at the moment is called the Data Lineage Project. So as I was saying, and that's why it's so important to sort of tie in what I said about the cybersecurity stuff and data protection rules, is that we do a lot of work with the ICO and obviously following the GDPR principles to make sure that the processes and controls that we have in place of data coming into the business right through to the products, that process in the middle is ticking all the boxes and satisfying those needs to make sure that we're doing everything in the right way. So essentially the project that I'm doing at the minute is looking at data lineage, which is looking at that end-to-end scope and really sort of painting a picture to make sure we know individually at each point what's going on with the data and what standards and controls are in place to make sure that we satisfy those principles.
Great. Lovely. I'm going to whiz round the panel fairly quickly on this because I am conscious that we will run out of time soon, and Carla nearly killed me last time I did that. So, Georgie, I'm going to move on to you next because your project is slightly different from everything else that we're going to hear about. So could you just run us through what your favourite thing that you've done at Experian so far is?
Yeah, so at Experian, we have different groups of networks, and one that I've been working with since I joined is the Women in Experian network. And with them, we do a yearly event for International Women's Day where we bring in girls from local secondary schools who are kind of GCSE age making decisions, and we tell them about the different careers that are in IT and the different routes that go into that, because there is so many and a lot of people just don't have that awareness. Like I never did at that age. And we also just do some fun activities with them. So this year we did Lego robots, and that was also working with our STEM network that does more sort of outreach stuff. So it was a big collaboration event and it was really fun and rewarding.
And are you going to carry on working with those groups as well over the next few years, you think?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just been, the network itself has just been really supportive, and I think it's one of those things where I get a lot out of it, but then I can also give back. So it's a really good balance.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Georgie. Hayley, over to you. One of your projects has been working on the actual Experian website. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm in the ECS team, which is Experian Consumer Services, sorry. So that basically just means the website, which is consumer facing. So we've been recently working on a brand new product. You'll start to see advertised shortly, which is really exciting, but I can't tell you anything more about it. But working on one of the new pages for that, we wanted to add in a confetti effect, which wasn't something that we'd done on our website before, and definitely wasn't anything that I had done before. So I managed to work really closely with our designers and actually even the devs over in the American team who had implemented something like that on their website. So it was really good, about a week back and forth communication between us and them and the designers, really close collaboration. It was really, really enjoyable, and everyone's really happy with the outcome. So yeah, hopefully some of you guys will get to see it.
Fantastic. I'm excited for this. I like the secrecy. It always feels like we're getting a little bit of a sneak peek into what might be coming. And then finally, Shamas, over to you. What is your favourite project so far?
Yeah, so I'll just reflect on my first one coming into the business and almost the shock factor of how much trust the business puts into you to actually carry something out. It was slightly scary. At the same time, it's exciting how much trust they do put in you. So I was tasked with an online spreadsheet which a whole function ran on, to be transitioning that over to a module or almost an application on a new software. And then following that on is to train all the individuals from that function to use this new module. I never knew what the module was, I never heard of it. And that's something that I'd like to put out to the guys on the call, is you won't know everything. And and you may not have heard of anything, but it's all those skills that you're going to apply and what you're learning now and what Experian are looking for that you can apply to the project. So that was probably the most exciting one, because it was the first one and it was almost me realizing, hold on, I'm making all the decisions there. And that's a weird feeling to start off with. But when you have experienced individuals saying that's a good decision, or they give you like some advice to say, maybe think about other things, you just develop extremely quick. So yeah, that was definitely my favorite to date.
That's great to hear. And I think this is quite a common thing that we're finding out at a lot of these webinars, is how much responsibility actually graduates are given from day one at a lot of different companies. And it's always such a nice thing to hear from graduates, how valued they feel kind of straight away in those sort of scenarios. So yeah, that's brilliant. I'm going to hand over to Carla now, because I do know that we need to come back to Oriane and get some more hints and tips coming through. But there are a couple of things that we haven't had chance to cover, but we will regroup with the grads after this and make sure that we get that onto the Experian Hub as well. So Carla, over to you, my love.
Thank you, Soph. So yeah, just to kind of reiterate what Sophie just said, the grads have got some fantastic 5-year plans coming up, both personally and with their careers at Experian. So what we'll do, we kind of know what those are, so we'll make some additional graduate profiles to their hub on GradCracker and make sure we feature all those, because you've got some really good, ambitious plans over the next few years, which I'm sure everybody would like to hear about. So thank you, everybody, for taking part so far. Really good insight, really excited for you to open up your opportunities, Oriane, and I think we're going live within the next month, 4 weeks, something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had a couple go-aheads from some roles. So all I will say is keep your eyes peeled over the next 4 weeks on GradCracker. We will be going live and advertising on there, and you can also find details on the website if you'd like to as well, but all of that information is on our GradCracker hub. So as Carla mentioned, all of the hints and tips are on there. You'll find everything you need to know.
Yeah, fantastic. And what we can do on GradCracker, as you all know, I'm preaching to the converted, but make sure you follow Experian. And then when we do go live, when Elle and the customer relations team behind the scenes here make the Experian roles live, we will send you an email and push notification. So definitely make sure you follow and be the first to know. As I keep saying, the visitor numbers are huge on GradCracker at the moment. Our employers are being inundated with applications, so make sure you put in a good quality application. Right, back to Oriane. I think we've gone through the application process. I think, Luke, you did an absolutely sterling job there. Is there anything else that you wanted to add to the new procedure, or has Luke covered everything in your mind, Oriane?
Yeah, I think if I just do a very high level, so the process is a 4-stage element. So you will apply online with your CV, then go through a little bit of online testing. You'll then have a 1-way pre-recorded video interview, and then you'll pop along to an assessment centre, exactly the same as Hayley's experienced. But if you do go on our GradCracker page, we have individual pages for each of those elements, as well as hints and tips of what we recommend for each stage. So yeah, if you would love to find out more, please head over to that area of the page and you'll find everything you need to know.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, don't forget, the webinar will be on GradCracker as a whole from tomorrow, and then we'll break it into sections, which should be live early next week. So, make sure you go back and rewatch the webinar, mention the webinar as part of your application as well. Oriane would absolutely love to know that, you've watched her and all the graduates and taken on board what everybody's said. Just to kind of cover off, Luke in particular mentioned his experiences in joining Experian in a pandemic. Now, I know what a lot of people are thinking, Oriane, is, yes, so at the moment we're all working from home, that's a bit of a norm, but hopefully the world is going to get back to normal. People are going to go back to offices, restrictions are going to be lifted. And I know that you're predominantly based in Nottingham. So what expectation is there on a student? So they apply to Experian now, obviously all working from home, as we can see. Would they have to go back and work in Nottingham when the restrictions are lifted?
It's a really good question, and it is something that I know a lot of students are anxious about. So our stance at the moment is the health of our employees and our colleagues and our friends and family, that takes the forefront, absolutely. So, for example, Luke and any of our graduates that joined this September, we actively encourage them to say, don't relocate, don't move to Nottingham. There is no immediate need. We would prefer you to be at home with your friends or your family, or in a safe environment where you don't feel isolated. Especially in a pandemic, we don't want students to relocate to Nottingham, feel on their own, not be able to be in the office because of government restrictions. That's not something, you know, we're holding you back from. This is a worldwide situation we're coping with.
Mm-hmm.
But equally, when, fingers crossed, we do go back to a more normal setting, there will be no rush for people to be straight in Nottingham. So we're not expecting that our graduates need to relocate in 2 weeks, be there on the spot. It's very much go at a pace that works for you. We would prefer you to be in Nottingham and be in the offices, simply for your benefit of that community feel and the learning. But there is no rush, there's no priority. And even for people that are joining Experian, so pre-COVID, we actually have a private group where we connect all of our up and coming students that are joining. They have a private space to chat, and they can talk about getting a house share together. What are the good estate agents in Nottingham? What cities are they looking at? And we also bring in our previous graduates to give that advice, to say, Clifton's a good area, Bilborough's a good area, or that area is a little bit expensive. So it's about supporting students that are relocating, but during the pandemic, there isn't that priority. So don't worry about that for now. As long as you are open to relocating when we're in a situation that is required, that's all we need from you at this stage.
Brilliant, thank you. And something else that when we've been speaking over the last few months is a point that we identified the other day. All of your online, your virtual activities that you're running as part of the application process. Some people out there, I live in a bit of a loud household with 2 children and 2 dogs, and it's a bit mental sometimes. It's like, shh, just be quiet, I'm on a webinar. There are some students out there who are in shared flats, or they're still living with mum and dad, with little brothers and sisters running around. And you were keen, Orianne, to you're really understanding as an employer that you can't guarantee 100% silence when you are doing the application process. So do you want to just cover off a few bits that you mentioned to me the other day about this?
Absolutely. I mean, even now my bedroom door is closed, but I have a black Labrador, and if it was open, you'd probably be sat here in my face, wanting to know what's going on. And that's the reality of life. We are all in our home setting. And if you apply to us and you have an interview, all of our managers understand that. Our managers at Experian have young children. They have kids that run around in their room, or parcels that get delivered. You don't need to worry about that. Just try to be in as fairly distraction-free environment as you can. Yeah. If a hiccup occurs, if you need to jump off, if there's a problem, all you need to do is say, I'm really sorry, someone's at the door, I'm just going to pop myself on mute, I'll be back in 2 minutes, dash off, sort what you need to, and come back. Yeah. There's no need to get flustered and work yourself up over it. So we understand, we're human beings, don't panic, just put yourself on mute, put yourself off camera, go sort it, come back and carry on.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, really good advice. I think it is, a true concern to some people. They can't guarantee that. So just as you as a recruiter, as a human being yourself, to say that, I think will reassure a lot of students out there who are watching. So yeah, thank you very much everybody for joining us today. Oh, Sophie, you could have had another 2 minutes there, love. So yeah, thanks very much everybody. It's been really, really good and insightful, and I've really loved meeting you all. Don't forget, say it again, the Experian Hub on GradCracker. Go follow them to be alerted to when their new opportunities open. Next week we are going to be joined, I am taking a well-deserved Thursday off a webinar. So Sophie is going to be joined by Jess, who you all know and love, and they'll be running a webinar with Taylor Wessing. Now, I mentioned last week about the new sectors which are emerging, new employers wanting STEM students. Experian is one, and so is Taylor Wessing. So they are an international law firm specialising in technology and media communications. They'll be joined by Sophie and Jess and their talent advisor, Alice, and she will go through all the options as a STEM student that you can undertake within the law sector. So definitely worth a watch, but focus on Experian today. The webinar will be live tomorrow. Come back, have a look, have a watch, and make sure you get your applications in when they do open.
Yeah, a massive thank you as well from my side for everyone that has joined. Just really appreciate you being on. You know, there's been over 60 of you today, which shows a good commitment to employability. Yeah. And if you would like to, if any of you do have LinkedIn, you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to stay connected. If you type in Oriana, I'm probably one of the few Orianas, definitely in the Midlands, in Experian, potentially in the UK altogether. So feel free to stay connected as well. But as Carla said, please register on GradCracker to be notified when we go live. If you don't, you're going to miss that window. So really critical that you have that at the forefront of your mind.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, you've just done my ending for me, Ariane. It's a good job. I'm taking a rest next week. You can join. Perfect. Well, yeah, thanks very much, everybody. And remember, 2 o'clock next Thursday, join Sophie and Jess, and we'll see you all soon. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.